the fish bass. The fish bass is first instrument I've made, and it was a lot of fun. It took me a really long time, and you know, it's got some good parts and some bad parts. We'll start with the head and continue on down. First of all, on the neck, is a purchased neck. Comes from Eden Guitars. Eden Guitars. It's an excellent neck. It's a short scale bass neck, and it has this comically large headstock. And obviously, when it came with the headstock, it was squared off and not dyed. So I made this kind of insane design with a jigsaw and some very large drill bits, and you know, it was for amusement purposes. Obviously, this very, very top part is completely decorative and just there to amuse me. It has no other real purpose. The tuners are Wilkinson, I think, or something. They're fun. They're perfectly good tuners, and I like them a lot. One thing with being a new instrument builder, one tends to take hardware off and put it back on many times while fixing mistakes. And when you do that a lot, it starts to make some pieces of hardware feel a little bit funky. And so, like one of these tuners, the inside of it feels a little bit wonky when it's not under pressure. It works fine, just that when it's not actually strung up, it's a little bit kirkety. When you get an Eden guitar neck, they give you a bone nut, and the bone nut is really nice and it's really pretty and everything. But the bone nut was not quite enough for me. It was not big enough for the larger strings. So I went to cut it down with a Dremel tool, and that's when I discovered two things. I discovered that the sound that a Dremel tool makes is very much like the sound that you hear at a dentist's office, and the smell of a bone nut is the smell at a dentist's office. So bone nut gone, but off of eBay I got a brass nut. Brass nut, very nice. Look at that, very pretty. And I don't care about the nut that much on an instrument, so that's how it works. Made a dumb error. The pocket on a Fender bass guitar is supposed to be substantially larger than on an electric guitar, and I was using the wrong measurements. So I made the pocket too small in this direction. And in fact, I had made the pocket too wide when I first cut it because I just did a terrible job. So then I thought, oh, I'll have it do this cutout thing and that'll look nice. And that didn't. And so, okay, the first thing that happened was I made a mistake with the location of the pocket, and so I couldn't really put the plate in the proper place because the plate would have been too close to the edge of this over here. So the plate is more like it would be if this were just an electric guitar and not a bass guitar. The other thing that I did was I made a little mistake, and I actually cut down just a little bit too deep into this pocket. So there's a small piece of cherry that was scrap cherry that was put in here, which brings me to the bulk of this instrument. This instrument was made out of a piece of pine that I found in the trash. So it's two pieces that are glued together. never ever try to make a guitar out of pine. There's a good reason why people don't make them out of pine, and it's not because of the sound, and it's not because of any. It's because pine is simultaneously too hard and too soft, so it's impossible to work with. Because every time you go to fix something or to make something nice, all you do is cut a big gouge where it's too soft, and then you've got this big problem where it's too hard in other places. But I thought I would create this kind of design that has all sorts of little holes in it because it sort of amused me. And I made this sort of design out of a jigsaw because I had this idea that maybe it would be sort of fun if the guitar sort of led you to have your hand on it more like this than up here. It does sit in kind of like a classical position. We shall continue to go down the guitar. The pickups. They're really quite lovely. This particular pickup just seemed a little bit large, so I put it at an angle, figuring that the bass string and the high string would sort of get equal coverage. Let's listen to that pickup, shall we? Now I have wired this instrument in the style of the jazz bass, so that you can actually turn it all the way down. Help to have the instrument in tune, don't you think? One nice thing about these Eden necks is, man, the ability to you turn the truss rod a quarter of a turn and it really responds for you. It's really, really nice. So let's look at the other end of this guitar as soon as it gets into focus. These are some relatively inexpensive. This is just a relatively inexpensive bridge that works great. Gives you complete control. I found that this guitar seemed to want to be slightly longer than 30 inches, very, very slightly. What did I end up with? So it's at 30 and a half. I'd say that it's the 30 and a half inches. The pickups are set to be at kind of a specific distance. They're proportional to where they would be on a jazz bass. So they're at 25 and a quarter and 27 and a half inches from the nut. Neck pickup. And this is the bridge pickup. We're going through a special program on my Kemper. This is an emulation of, actually I have no idea, I think this is an emulation of that amplifier, which is a JTM 45 clone. So The other thing that this guitar does nicely is takes to a pick pretty well. These are fairly cheap strings, and they've been really beaten up because they were on when I did one of the passes putting polyurethane on the guitar, and so they got some polyurethane on them, which I scrubbed off with steel wool, which is not the right way to do it. These are both pickups together and a pick. And with fingers. And again, as with most bass guitars, I found there's this sweet spot as you start to roll off one of the pickups. Just one of them, it gets a little bit louder. And it sounds a little bit nicer to me. So this is both pickups with, since I just wired this up, I don't remember which is which. All right, so that's clearly the, that's clearly the bridge. And this is the bridge with some neck. And that's what a sloppy guitar player sounds like when he tries to play bass. The finish is something that maybe a second grader would be proud of. It's not great. I do like the dye job. The finish on it is, I mean, it's sloppy. There's huge bubbles and drips, and I couldn't make anything flat because the wood just wanted to go when I tried to sand it. I'd kind of made this open trough for the pickups to sit in, and that was so I had a lot of room to move them back and forth, because I thought maybe being able to move them back and forth would be good. But then I decided that no, that was just ugly once I had settled on a positioning for them. So I took a photograph with a rule nearby, and I put the photograph into Adobe Illustrator and drew a little precise picture with help from Damien at the Fab Lab. And using that, it cut out the back plate and the front pick guard using stuff called sandwood, which is just a 1/4 inch, very lightweight plywood. Oh, and another really exciting thing is, when I first put the bridge on, the bridge was pulling up from the rest of the guitar because it was going into pine. And the pine was so soft that the tension of the strings was just pulling the bridge out of the guitar. So I had to route a hole in the guitar and take another piece of cherry that was a piece of scrap and drop that in there and glue it in, and I let it harden over the weekend. And the piece of cherry holds the bridge just fine. Actually, I guess that would be done with a pick. So right now, this is actually my favorite bass guitar. Probably part of that is because I built it and it's sort of fun and amusing, and you know, it's kind of comical looking. But man, I gotta say, these pickups are excellent, and the parts the budget parts for this instrument, really, I could not have asked for more. This neck is excellent. These pickups are excellent. The hardware is really something. All of the hardware, the bridge, really nice. The pots are a little bit janky because I kept taking them off and putting them back on again, and then finally one got stepped on, I think, by an elephant, as far as I can tell, because I mean, it still works. It's just, you know, the elephant wasn't very happy. These are fairly light duty strings. I believe these are Slinky, I don't know, Ernie balls. They're actually for like a Fender Bass 6. But I was just trying to get them in the right scale. It's a little bit difficult to get strings in exactly the right scale. And in fact, I had to put these funny little, I believe they're called ferrules, that I found to just because these strings have balls at the end that are slightly smaller than the normal bass guitar string. So we've already done some recording with this bass, and yeah, I rather like the fish bass, and the fish bass likes you.